if the Ukrainians manage to surround the Russians and cut off their route to the rest of their troops in east of the river, that could represent a very big defeat for the Russians. So the Ukrainians are hoping to achieve some sort of victory there within the next couple of months.
I've been speaking to Richard Spencer, who's in Mykolaiv for The Times, and he has the latest on the story.
The nuclear power plant, which is the biggest in Europe, is on the banks of the river, and there is a town nearby, Enerhoda, which is a Russian-occupied town, and the Russians have a base there. They're using that base to shell the Ukrainian side of the river, and the Ukrainians are shelling back. Now, whose shells are actually, hitting close to the nuclear power plant itself is hotly disputed. The Ukrainians say that the Russians are doing it themselves to garner attention and to discredit the Ukrainians. Obviously, the Russians say it's the Ukrainians doing it.
The plant has been the subject of a sustained attack, really. It is a target with Russian forces taking it over at one point. The International Atomic Energy Agency are also at the plant as well. And just in terms of safety, what does being knocked offline mean for the plant? And is this, because of the obvious reasons, a danger to the local communities?
I mean, we're told that there is no immediate danger from these incidents. On the one hand, the plant itself obviously is very well protected, has very thick walls for obvious reasons to keep what's inside. And likewise, there are, as you say, there's reserve power lines to keep the thing operating. Obviously, if it goes offline too long, then you have problems with the power to the water coolant systems. Then obviously things can go badly wrong. We're led to understand it's not quite as serious yet as the situation at the Chernobyl plant.
Meanwhile, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has given an exclusive interview to the Sunday Times. I think it's safe to say, after reading this, Richard, that the bromance between Boris Johnson and Zelensky is still very much alive. He wouldn't talk about our exiting Prime Minister in the past tense. That was too much for him. He also described Boris Johnson as an energetic person and insisted to him that he mustn't disappear after he leaves his position as Prime Minister. What did you make of the interview?
There's two things going on in this bromance. I mean, one is that Boris Johnson was very early to say we have to support Ukraine with everything it takes. That's partly Boris Johnson sort of seeing, I think, an opportunity to play the sort of Churchillian role that he's always foreseen for himself. But also, I think it's a British position as well. The British have been much more hostile to Russia for a long time than, say, France or Germany. Had our own brushes with Russia, in such as the attack on the Skripals, the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko. Been much more sceptical about Putin for years now. So that was partly a British position. And then I think there's a sort of personal chemistry between them. I mean, they're both showmen. I mean, this is the important thing. Zelensky was a sort of comic actor before his rather unlikely, rise to power. If you remember, I mean, he came to power because he played a television character in which he was a teacher who accidentally became president of Ukraine, and this was so popular that he actually made a run for president and was elected. Boris Johnson is not quite in the same mould as that, but certainly the idea of being a popular and populist character. There's clearly a personal bond there, I think.
Yeah, we also hear that Zelensky is concerned about a change of leadership. He's going to embrace whoever becomes the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, but he is concerned about a change.
As the interview says, Johnson reassured him that he saw no likely alteration in British policy. I was interested to see that Ben Wallace is tipped to stay on as Defence Secretary. He was an early candidate to be leader until he ruled himself out, so he didn't want the job. As Defence Secretary, I mean, he's possibly been more important than Boris Johnson in terms of pushing a very strong pro-Ukrainian line in terms of sending weapons and support to the Ukrainians from very early on. In some ways, Johnson was the front man and Ben Wallace was the person actually crafting that policy. And so if he does stay on as Defence Secretary, I think that'd be a fairly big reassurance, Zelensky. And really, given her general positioning, it's hard to see that Liz Truss, who after all has been Foreign Secretary during this period as well, it's hard to see her adjusting policy. The question is whether Truss, who's so much more confrontational in a way with Britain's European allies over Brexit and so on.
You're in Mykolaiv, which is right near Kherson in southern Ukraine. And we're at a really pivotal time in this war, aren't we, as Ukraine undertakes a counter-offensive against Russia. How key could the month of September be in this conflict, in your opinion, Richard?
It's a very interesting and tense period, certainly. The next couple of months before winter really sets in is seen as quite an important one. And I think absolutely this offensive on Kherson is very important. I don't think the Ukrainians are expecting to actually retake the city of Kherson by December. They are, I think, hoping to reshape the battlefield around the city. Give a bit of context, Kherson is the only city on the west bank of the Dnieper, this river that cuts Ukraine in two from north to south. So it's a very important city. It's one where if the Ukrainians manage to surround the Russians and cut off their route to the rest of their troops in east of the river, that could represent a very big defeat for the Russians. So the Ukrainians are hoping to achieve some sort of victory there within the next couple of months. Significant blow to morale. And what they're worried about is that will then prompt the voices that want to do a deal with Russia to start raising those voices again to say, look, there's no way Ukraine can knock the Russians out. They'll have to come to a deal. So I think it's very important for Ukraine that they managed to get their troops to the banks of the Dnieper, surround the Russian troops in Kherson, even if they don't take the city itself. We've been speaking to soldiers who've been taking part in that campaign, and they say that it's kind of pretty slow progress. It's a grinding offensive, but that it is moving forward slowly.
That's Richard Spencer, who's in Mykolaiv for The Times. Now, senior health officials